Hello and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Battlefront Weekly. My name is Greg Henniger.
And I'm Lorenzo Valoria.
And today we're actually going to be talking about Free Radical's canceled Star Wars Battlefield 3. So now they leaked a lot of gameplay footage back in 2008.
Yep.
And so this isn't, new information, but we wanted to talk about something that actually was Battlefront at one point. What did you see from that and liked it?
Yeah, so the leaked gameplay footage was kind of a game that was reminiscent of the original Battlefront 2 game.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like, updated graphics, some more levels and stuff, but it was based mostly within the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War, it looked like.
Yeah, it's been
so the locations were, Endor, Coruscant, there was Yavin 4.
Yeah, Yavin the Sassy Temple was in there.
Yeah, there were the
awesome.
temples. They were running through the temples. I think Kamino was in there. Hoth, of course. They always have to have Hoth.
Yeah, AT-AT snowspeeders.
But yeah, it looked like that era. Clone troopers, stormtroopers, Republic commandos. And they also brought back a lot of features that were in Battlefront, like the heroes. Right. So there was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Sure.
Princess Leia was running through the forest at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yoda, Darth Vader, all those guys were back in there. So they wanted to bring back the heroes, it looked like.
Yeah, you saw Darth Vader just walk up to a rebel soldier and he was shooting him and you're like, oh.
Yeah, and he's just like, blam. So there was all that. It kind of just looked like Battlefront 2. They had a huge emphasis on vehicle combat. There was, TIE fighters flying around, X-Wings flying around.
Sure.
And there was the, kind of infamous now, starting from the planetary, bases and then jumping into a starfighter, flying up into the atmosphere.
Yeah,
and
which seemed like it took like 2 seconds.
Right,
like,
yeah.
They're on the ground, went up 80 feet, and now there's a giant battle.
Yeah, there's actually a scene in the leaked footage where someone flies up into the atmosphere, flies down, and the base is just right there, like not even a quarter mile over the planet's surface. Yeah. But, it was a prototype that you could tell this was just kind of like a concept for the game.
Sure.
But, you could take a lot of things out of this. If DICE decides to go with the, traditional Battlefield feel, this could be, a glimpse at what we could expect for the new game, from DICE's new game that's going to come in 2015. So the game was eventually canceled. So Greg, why was it canceled?
So Free Radical Design was actually working on the game with LucasArts, and there have been a couple of different people that have come out and said why it got canceled. There was a higher up that came out and said that the game was 99% complete before it got canceled.
Right.
And that it ran into, a lot of budgetary issues and things like that. And then a former LucasArts employee actually came out and said that the 99% was bullshit, and that the game was actually about 75% done. 75% of a mediocre game.
Right.
Is the way he described it. And there were a lot of reasons that were stated as to why it eventually got canceled. Free Radical was also working on a game called Haze at the time.
First-person shooter, yeah?
Yeah, first-person shooter for the PS3. They were pushing that out. That had delay after delay, and that game was eventually a year delayed while they were working on Battlefront 3.
Right.
So Free Radical also didn't meet a lot of their deadline appointments, and so Free Radical was not looking very great in the eyes of LucasArts. They were saying that some of the money that was supposed to go to Battlefront 3 ended up getting pushed over into Haze because they were delayed after time and time again. And so eventually, it was announced in 2006 and was supposed to come out in 2008. And then when they saw that deadline wasn't going to make it either, they pushed it into April of 2009. Right. And before that, they finally just came out and said, we're throwing in the towel. This game is never coming out, and it got canceled outright.
Right, and the other side of that, too, is LucasArts was also having a really hard time during 2008, 2009. So,
yeah.
It could have been, all Free Radical's fault, but, we really don't know. There's two sides of every story, and both sides of the story are kind of conflicting. So,
sure. And depending on how well DICE does with it, it might be a good thing that Free Radical never came out with this game.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see. We'll see. Well, that's all we're going to talk today about Free Radical. But last week we kicked out a Would You Rather to you guys, and it was, would you rather sleep in the belly of a tauntaun for 2 weeks, like you could get out, middle of the day, do whatever you want, but you have to crawl back in when you go to sleep, or you could hang out in the belly of a Sarlacc for just 2 days. We had some pretty funny responses.
Right, so Anime Robot said, Sarlacc for me, just want to hang out and walk around since they extend over many miles beneath the surface.
Yeah.
He just wants to play his Battlefront 2 on his old PSP.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer because you could explore. And a lot of people were saying like the Sarlacc slowly digests you over the course of 1,000 years.
And not much can happen to you beside like a sunburn or something.
Yeah, maybe a bad rash.
And also Gerald Smith said, wouldn't you be getting digested in a Sarlacc pit? It sounds too painful. I'd go with the Tauntaun.
All right, so we had a lot. It's about 50-50, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, it's too stinky for me, and other people were like, I don't want to be caught dead in a Sarlacc pit. All right, and for this week, we have, would you rather be roasted on a spit by an Ewok?
Okay.
Or be Jar Jar Binks's political advisor for life?
So be roasted on the spit by Ewoks, which sounds like you're eventually going to die pretty quick there, and be consumed by Ewoks, or spend the rest of your life with Jar Jar Binks,
hanging out with him
as a political advisor,
right? Which
also sounds like death.
That does sound like death.
Well, that's all we're going to talk about this week. So make sure you tune in next week to Star Wars Battlefront Weekly.
And may the Force be with you.
If you want to see last week's episode of Star Wars Battlefront 3, click here. If you want to see Super Smash Bros. Wii U Weekly, click here.